My name is Yuri. I'm 27 years old and I have a daughter named Alexa. My wife passed away a few months ago, and I've been trying to find a steady job, but it's been difficult. I mostly do occasional odd jobs to support my daughter, but lately I haven't been able to find anything. I was on a forum for people who needed help with various things, and I saw something that interested me. It was a post from someone saying that they had an open position for the night shift, and they were willing to pay $20 an hour. I know that it seemed too good to be true, and it did seem a little sketchy at first, but I needed the money desperately. The post had a link for an email address, so I clicked it and told them that if the position was still open, I was interested in applying. About 20 minutes later, I received an email from the person, and it read as follows. Hi, yes, the position for the night shift is still open. Thanks for applying. I was honestly worried that people would think that my post was a scam, but I can assure you that it's not. I need someone who can follow instructions and not ask too many questions. If you're still interested, meet me at this address on Monday at 5 p.m., and we can have an interview. I admit, something felt off about all of this, and I should have just left it. But for some reason, I felt like the person was being sincere with what they said. Monday arrived, and it was almost time for the interview. I had hired a babysitter to watch Alexa for the night, and then I got in my crappy car and made my way to the address mentioned in the email. After about a half an hour, I finally arrived at the location. It was a bit far from the city. The building was 6 stories and didn't have many windows. There weren't any logos or signs beside the address on the building. The parking lot was massive and only had 3 cars. I parked as close to the building as I could, took a deep breath and got out, and I walked to the door. It was an automatic door that would open when you would get close to it, but it didn't open when I was near it. I saw a secretary and I waved at her. She noticed me and opened the door for me. I walked towards her and she let out a smile. She was absolutely stunning. She had curly red hair and extremely light blue eyes. Her smile made me ease up a bit, and I said, "Hello, I'm here for the interview." She nodded and said, "Oh yes, please take a seat and Mr. Jackson will be with you shortly." Her voice was extremely soothing. I sat down in a chair not too far from the door and I looked around the reception area. The walls were this depressing shade of gray, and there were barely any decorations, beside a few plants that looked like they were on the verge of dying from dehydration. There were also a couple of hallways, but they were all pitch black and seemed to go on forever. There weren't any windows either, so the only natural light was coming from the door. Actually, it was sort of dark in there. There were only a few lights and they weren't very bright. About 5 minutes passed and the secretary told me that he was ready to see me. She got up and led me to the interview room, which was luckily near the reception area. She opened the door, let out a sweet smile, and closed the door. I walked up to Mr. Jackson and shook his hand. He was a pretty tall guy, maybe about 6'4", and he absolutely towered over me. He was also bald and had a short beard. He let out a smile and we both sat down. "Welcome, and I'm glad you were able to arrive," he said in a cheery tone. His voice was incredibly deep and soothing. I replied with, "Thank you. I'm glad that you are willing to see me." He nodded at me and said, "So, tell me about yourself." He has a somewhat intense stare. "Well, my name is Yuri Sokolov. I was born in Moscow, but at the young age my parents moved to the United States. I'm 27 years old and I have a 6-year-old daughter," I said in a somewhat nervous tone, due to how intensely he was staring at me. "Well, that's quite interesting, Yuri." He started to notice that I was nervous and said, "What are you so nervous about?" I took a second to reply. "I'm sorry, it's just how you're staring at me. It's making me a bit nervous." He looked at me for a few seconds. I noticed that he didn't blink the entire time that I was talking to him. I'm sorry. I sometimes do that. I'm sure you're wondering what exactly it is you'll be doing if you're hired. Well, you'll be our night shift janitor. He let out a chuckle and smiled. Oh, I see. Well, I don't have a problem with that, I said as I was starting to ease up. Well, I'm glad to hear that. You're the only person who's applied for the job, so I think it's safe to say that you're hired. He smiled and shook my hand. I smiled back and felt extremely relieved to hear that. We both sat back down and said, I'm really glad to hear that, but I had a question. He nodded. Ask away. I looked around the room and asked, what exactly is it that you guys do here? His smile went away and he had that intense stare again. I wouldn't ask too many questions if I were you. I felt nervous again and I apologized to him. He smiled again and said, Oh, no worries. Anyways, you'll be starting right away and we'll provide you with a uniform and a list of things that you'll be doing. Congratulations again. We both got up once again and he held the door open for me. I walked out and the secretary was waiting for me. Congratulations on getting the job. If you'll follow me, I'll show you where you'll be starting your shift. Oh, and by the way, my name is Christine. She smiled and I smiled back at her. Hey, thanks, my name's Yuri. She giggled. That's a nice name. She led me down one of the dark hallways and opened a door to the employee room. Your outfit is in the third locker, and the instructions are on the table. If you need anything else, call the number mentioned on the instructions. Good night and good luck. She closed the door and walked away. The room was kind of dark, but it had a window. I looked out and saw that it was already nighttime. I looked at the clock and it said that it was 8 p.m. I can't believe that much time had already passed. I opened the locker and put on my uniform, and then I took a look at the instructions. It had read as follows. Welcome to the family. We're glad that you're working with us and we're looking forward to a long and successful career for you. Before getting to what you'll be doing, we have a few things to say. Firstly, we are not responsible for any physical, mental, or emotional trauma you may and will encounter. We are also not responsible for anything that happens after your shift is ended. Now then, it is extremely important that you follow the instructions to the letter, for your own safety and sanity. You are not the only janitor, but you are also the only thing that's keeping them at bay. Now then, here is what you will need to do. Step 1. Lock the entrance and do not unlock or open the door until dawn. Then, at exactly 9 p.m., you will need to get to the restroom and clean the mirror. Do not, under any circumstances, clean it after or before 9 p.m. Make sure to lock the door. And then after you clean the mirror, you will need to unlock the second door in the main hallway, and go inside and wait until 11 p.m. You may hear something knock and try to open the door. Make sure that you lock it and do not open it for any reason, no matter how much it screams or threatens you to open the door. Step 2. After 11 p.m., you will need to quickly make your way back to the kitchen. Turn on the first 2 lights and clean the floor and empty the fridge. If you hear growling or see 2 white eyes, do not acknowledge them and keep cleaning. She will leave you alone as long as you ignore her. Step 3. After you clean the kitchen, move as fast as you can to the third hallway and lock the door at the end of the hallway. It is a matter of life or death that you lock that door before 12 a.m. If you don't, then you're done for. After you lock the door, use the flashlight provided and quickly turn around and flash it down the hallway. Make sure you close your eyes before doing something and keep flashing it for 30 seconds. Make sure that you do not open your eyes before the 30 seconds have passed. Step 4. This is the most important step. At exactly 12:30 a.m., make your way back to the employee's room. Go to the door in the back and enter the following code, 2598. You won't have much time before he tries to get you. Once you're in the room, stay there until dawn. There will be a few cameras in the room. watch them and make sure nothing goes wrong. The cameras are positioned on different floors, and there is one that's positioned outside the security room. Some various things to know also is that the reason you need to move quickly is that there is something that lurks in the building, and it's not like the others. I don't know exactly what it is, but you do not want it catching you. It can't stand light, so if for whatever reason you see it, you may only have a couple of seconds to use your flashlight before it kills you. Again, welcome to the family. I was honestly in shock. What in the world did I get myself into? This had to be a joke, but somehow I knew that it wasn't. I looked at the time and it was 8:58 p.m. I quickly opened the door and made my way to the restroom, and I looked at my watch and it was now 9 p.m. I locked the door and got some cleaner and a rag, and I started to clean the mirror. I heard something trying to open the door and it let out a high-pitched scream. After what felt like an eternity, it left. I finished cleaning the room and ran as quickly as I could to the second room in the hallway. I unlocked it and shut the door and then locked it. I took a minute to catch my breath and I looked around the room. It was a dirty apartment room with old furniture. I walked around and sat down on the couch in the middle of the room. It wasn't very bright, but you could still see everything in it. I looked at the time. It was at 10:22 p.m. I had to stay until 11. I looked around some more and noticed eventually something was off. There is a figure at the end of the room. It almost blended in with the darkness, and it had an unnaturally wide grin and pure blue eyes. I stared at it for a while, and it never moved an inch the entire time I was in that room. It was finally 11 p.m. and I got up and ran out of the room and to the kitchen. I turned on the lights like the instructions said, and I started to clean the floors. Almost immediately, I heard a deep growl. It was almost human, but it had a demonic echo to it. I ignored it and I kept cleaning. A minute later, I started feeling like I was being watched, like something was staring deep into my soul. In the corner of my eye, I saw two white eyes staring at me. I did my best to ignore it. Once I emptied the fridge, the eyes got closer to me. I started to hear what sounded like someone calling me, but I kept ignoring it. After I cleaned the kitchen, I sprinted to the third hallway. The building was pitch black, and the only way I could tell where I was going was by a few dimly lit lights that marked the rooms. The entire time during my shift, I felt like something was chasing me, like something wanted to rip me apart. That only made me run faster. I eventually made it down the hallway after what felt like an eternity, and I locked the door. Immediately after that, I felt something bang up against the door and scratch at it. I fell back, and after a few seconds, I remembered that I needed to get my flashlight. I got it out, turned it on, and turned back, closing my eyes. I heard a loud screech, like something was in extreme pain. It was almost deafening. 30 seconds had passed and the screeching was gone. I opened my eyes and ran to the security room. On my way there, I tripped, and as I did, I heard something running towards me. I was scared out of my mind, and I turned on my flashlight, and I shined it down the hallway. For a split second, I saw a figure run back into the darkness. I wasn't able to get a good look at it. I made my way back to the employee room, and I got to the door, used the code, and I closed it. I took a deep breath and wondered what the heck I got myself into for a few minutes. After I looked around the room, it was a small, brightly lit room with 7 cameras, one for each floor, and the one outside the security room. I walked to the cameras and I looked at them. Every floor in the building was pitch black, with the exception of dimly lit lights marking rooms and such. About an hour passed and nothing really happened, except for the occasional scratching at the door. Although at 4 a.m., I saw something in the camera on the first floor. There was a figure that looked just like my daughter staring into the camera. My eyes widened and I wondered what the heck was going on. She said, "Please, Daddy, help us, I'm scared." She was crying uncontrollably, and I tried to open the door, but it was locked. I tried to unlock it, but nothing happened. I kept trying to unlock the door, and I tried to break it down, but it didn't even budge. There was a phone, and I tried to call the police, but as soon as I did, I would hear a loud, deafening screech coming from the end of the phone. I recoiled, and I held my ear. I looked at the camera, and Alexa was still crying. Eventually, something started to approach her. She looked and screamed, and for a second, I saw something jump at her, but the camera then went out. I started shaking, and my eyes teared up. I began frantically banging against the door to open it, but to no avail. I slid down the door, and I started sobbing. I thought to myself, how the heck did she even get in here? What happened to her babysitter? What was that thing? I lost the only thing I had left in the world. After about 20 minutes, I heard the phone ring. I answered it, and it was Mr. Jackson over the line. Hey, Yuri, I just wanted to check on things and see how. I interrupted him and said, listen, why didn't you tell me this building was haunted? And how the heck did my daughter get inside here? I just watched her get ripped to shreds by some demon. Whoa, calm down, Yuri. Listen, you were hallucinating. I forgot to mention that in the instructions. The creature will try to trick you into coming out. Alexa is home safe in bed. I calmed down but realized what he said. Wait, how do you know what my daughter's name is? The line went dead. I felt an extreme rage and sadness come over me. Was my daughter dead? Was she alive? Am I hallucinating? I don't know. All I know is that I'm trapped in a building with a bunch of demons that want to kill me. I tried my best not to panic. My daughter has to be okay. That was just a hallucination. She's okay, I said to myself as I took a deep breath. It was finally dawn and my shift had ended. The door unlocked and I ran out as quickly as I could. Got into my car and I drove back home. To say that I broke the speed limit was an understatement. I had to be going about 80 miles per hour. Eventually, I made it home, opened my door, and I called for Alexa. Nothing. I called her again, still nothing. I ran up to her room, each step heavier than the other. I opened the door and I saw her sleeping in bed. I ran to her and I hugged her so tightly. She woke up and asked what I was doing. Alexa, God, I'm so glad you're okay. I was trying not to cry. Of course I'm okay, Daddy, why wouldn't I be? She asked, still half asleep. I hugged her again and I looked at her. But then I noticed something. Her eyes. They were pure blue. Is something wrong, Daddy? She started to form an unnaturally wide grin. And then I realized this wasn't my daughter. This was that thing from the building. I stood up and started breathing heavily. I ran out of the room and locked the door. I yelled for the babysitter and no one replied. I looked around and I noticed a trail of blood leading to my room. I reluctantly walked towards it, and there I saw the mangled body of the babysitter. Her head split in half and her organs spread out. I vomited and tried to call the police, but the line was dead. I even tried to run out of the house, but the door wouldn't budge, and the windows wouldn't break. I was trapped in this house with that thing. I ran back into my room and saw a note in the bed and a check. The note said, "Congratulations on surviving the night. However, it seems that you won't be back for the second night. I'm sorry about your daughter, but she'll make a fine addition to the family, as will you. I hope it won't be too painful. From Mr. Jackson." How could he? I should have known this was all a trick, but I was too dumb to realize it. My daughter is gone because of me, and soon I'll join her. I know you all probably don't believe me, but honestly, I don't care. I don't know why I even wrote this all out. I'm so sorry, Alexa. I'll see you soon.